Podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, a big shout out to the great and powerful Bryson Van Beber for that wonderful new entrance music. This is the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips. As always, you just heard it. I am joined alongside my two co-hosts, Mr. Andrew Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how are you both doing today?
We're doing great.
Hey, round of applause.
I had to have it, you know. Sean hasn't been on since we added the old sound machine board there. No, hey man, hey wait one more time for the new dad, Sean Phillips. Let's give it up one more time.
Yes, give it up.
There we go. Oh my gosh, congratulations,
yes,
Dad.
You.
Tell us all about it. Tell us all about it.
No, it's been super crazy, and I appreciate you guys, the listeners, everybody for bearing with me. Again, it's still the craziness is going on now. I literally was finishing work, and I'm still trying to get errands and stuff done. That's crazy. Anyone that has a child of any age knows, but newborns especially. But no, it's a blessing. We're super happy, and things have been good. How about you guys?
Well, we're doing good. You might want to speak into your mic a little bit better. I had a hard time hearing you, but I tell you what, I missed last week being off, but hey man, vacation is great. Branson sucks, but we had a great time.
Branson sucks.
Yeah.
What happened?
Oh well, I you know, it was what it was. We had a great my kids enjoy Branson. I will say this: the Titanic Museum was phenomenal. Really enjoyed that. Silver Dollar City is oversold.
Well, and you didn't have to go underwater to experience Titanic at this one. So, that's
right.
And,
I mean,
death waiver.
You know, I wasn't crushed by 10,000 pounds of pressure or anything like that. So I mean, you know. But no, we had a good time. Very restful, very relaxing. Our church had a vacation Bible school all this week. I ran to St. Louis after VBS today, and I have to go to Chicago. I'll be up in your neck of the woods on Monday, Travis. I have to run.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have to run to O'Hare to pick up some kids at O'Hare from our church. So, you know, I get to experience the love
Here's great.
Yeah, the love that is Chicago.
Well, it's not as bad as Midway.
So, but no, it was a great week, and I'm counting down the days. Not really, but you know, counting down the days until we get back into school, which is 3 weeks away until I have to report. So. Anyway.
Yeah, are you?
It's time to go back.
Are you ready for it? Are you ready to be back in reality?
Well, I don't know if I'd call it reality or not, Sean, but it is I don't know. This has been. I mean, I did a lot of projects this summer, but it's been a very restful. I'll just put it this way: it's been a very restful summer. I will mention this before I forget. I almost forgot. So I'm at Silver Dollar City. Okay, which I'm not enjoying because it's not fat guy friendly and it's not anything. But so we're getting ready to leave. We're getting ready to walk out of the park, and I catch this guy with the corner of my eye, and he's doing a beeline for me, and he comes up to me and he says, "Hey man, can I have $5?" And I looked at him for a second, and it was one of my first students from 25 years ago. And he is an avid listener. His name is Patrick Connor. He listens to us. He's pretty much been with us since the beginning. He listens to us. He is a nurse down in Springfield, Missouri. So I want to give a shout out to Pat. Man, it was great seeing you this weekend. But he said he still said his favorite episode was the AI and aliens, and but he listens to us Spotify on the way to work and everything, and he's one of our original fans. We have a few originals who stuck with us all the way through. So just want to give a quick shout out to Patrick. So thank you, Patrick.
So awesome. Thank you for the support, Patrick.
That is so much better than all the chronic masturbators that I've been running into in public out here. Like, you can tell it's getting hot in California because, you know, it's been just over a year now, like a year and it'll be a year and a month, August 1st. But in the span of the last like 3 weeks, I have seen more guys jacking off in our public park than I see in my own mirror at home anymore. It is insane.
Wait a minute. There we go. Okay.
What about Jesus Christ? What about what about those blackouts too?
Oh my God.
Well, I think that's the problem is they're not turning the electricity off. So it's something.
How are they, I mean, if they got blackouts, how are they watching their porn?
So they still got cell service.
I'm asking the important questions here.
The porn is in their heads.
The people want to know.
The porn is in their heads and in the streets. Like it is something, man. Let me tell you.
Well, the topic that we are going to get into tonight, maybe it'll keep them from getting. Well, no, it won't keep them from getting their porn. Calm down, guys. It'll be okay. Man, we had if you all haven't been watching or seeing in the news, which this has kind of been, and Travis and I were talking about this before we began on the podcast tonight. If you haven't been paying attention, a week ago yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee has been doing an ongoing off and on investigation into what's called the weaponization of the government. And particular focus has been on censorship, and hence the title of the show tonight, The New Battle Over Censorship. And what is happening, what is being brought to light has been basically work between the government and corporate entities like YouTube, like Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Well, Twitter up until our buddy Elon took it over. How if there's something unpopular or something that is, and we'll get into more of this, the word that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. used, the new term that they're coining malinformation. We'll get more into malinformation here in a little bit. But if you are counter to the government's agenda, basically the claim there were five witnesses who appeared before this House committee hearing, and basically if you go counter to the government's agenda, the government works hard to either discredit you or silence you or just out and out censor you and block you out, all the above. And Travis, I don't know if if you want to go ahead and say a little bit about what we were saying earlier before we came on about basically the dark state and all that stuff. If this is I don't have my tinfoil hat. I cleaned off my desk the other day, so I don't have my tinfoil hat. But I mean, what was it you were saying before we went on about the possibilities of dark state stuff and everything?
Yeah, I've never been a person who was like, oh, the deep state this, the deep state that. I've never been quite that. I just never had that belief. I will say though, it is very interesting how much they are going against this guy to run for president. Yeah. Like for example, like he announced today that apparently the Homeland Security has denied his request for Secret Service, not protection.
That's
now,
crazy.
For those who don't know, after RFK Jr.'s father was killed, what was his name? Something.
Robert.
Do you remember what his name was?
Bobby Kennedy. With his
Oh yeah, I guess Junior. So yeah.
Wait.
So, yeah.
Wait a minute.
It's been
there
a
we
long
go.
week. I barely slept this week.
Oh
Thank
man.
you, thank you.
Yeah.
So after he was killed, they passed a law saying that a presidential candidate can get
Right.
Secret Service protection. And I looked at some interesting. I read this MSNBC article that showed that so Trump was approved like a year before the actual election date. It's like a year out, he got approved,
Hmm.
or it was 2015 he got approved for Secret Service protection.
Right.
Obama got approved in 2007 for Secret Service protection. Give me a second, I'm turning a light on here.
It's okay.
Um, and then also Ben Carson. When Ben Carson ran for president, he also received Secret Service protection. Robert F. Kennedy posted on Instagram today, and forgive me, we're organizing baby stuff in here.
You're good.
RFK went on Instagram today and announced that he was denied Secret Service protection for running for president. And usually it's a 14-day process to get a decision from the Homeland Security. And it's something I want to point out too. Homeland Security is under the executive branch. And in his Instagram, he calls out the Biden administration for shutting down his request, which
Right.
I can see that. It's under the executive branch. I get what he's doing. But anyway, so he was denied. And not only was he denied, like I said, it's a 14-day process. This was 88 days after his request. He was denied.
So
And
they've been sitting on this for a while.
yeah, they've been procrastinating on this. Why? I wonder. So I see stuff like that, and it just to me, it's like I don't want to be conspiratorial here, but like it's so obvious they don't want this guy to be president. I mean, they took down his announcement speech from Boston. You can't find it on YouTube.
Mm-mm.
You can find like little like 15-second MSNBC videos of him like, hey, he announced his run for presidency, but you can't find his speech on YouTube. And now you found it on Routers, and I would like to listen to it.
Well,
I haven't
it's
listened to
on
it yet,
YouTube
but
through Reuter's page, and so
okay.
but one of the things
But
that
his page is like you said.
oh,
His page isn't
his
on
page
there,
is
correct?
gone. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and
Yeah,
get
and
that.
he didn't have. He was all social media for a while too.
Right.
He just got back on Instagram not too long ago. He didn't have an Instagram because he was kicked off. He was deplatformed.
Well, let's just go ahead and go with that clip real quick here. Let me go ahead and bring up. We're going to be playing a few clips today, and this clip that we're getting ready to play was from when. This is about RFK and YouTube. Let's go to that real quick.
When I gave my announcement speech in Boston 2 months ago, YouTube, I talked about all those issues. I focused on grocery. I focused on the fact that working class people can no longer afford to live in this country. I talked about inflation, all the issues that deeply concern you, and that you've devoted your career alleviating those issues. 5 minutes into my speech, when I was talking about Paul Revere, YouTube deplatformed me. I didn't talk about vaccines in that speech. I didn't talk about anything that was a verboten subject. I just was talking about my campaign and things, the conversation we ought to be having with each other as Americans. But I was shut down.
So that's an interesting clip there. I mean, so basically, the day that he announced his presidency, and you heard it there. He was talking about like the rising price of groceries. He was talking about all this stuff, and then 5 minutes into his speech, he's deplatformed. And
yeah,
to me, and you kind of said it already, Travis, and I'll hit on it again. To me, let me back up. I think that there is such a thing as real-time polling. You see it every time whenever, if you ever watch like Fox does it, I've seen CNN do it, where they when Trump would ever give a when Trump would give his State of the Union, CNN, like they're on you could go to their online content, and CNN would have an approval, like a real time approval, disapproval of whatever the speech, how they react to the speech. And I think this kind of thing still exists, and I think that they're probably something that YouTube or something, they have a way of maybe, I don't know if they have real time polling or anything like that, like CNN did.
Yeah, how does that work? Are people actually going on those websites and voting, like giving a thumbs up or thumbs down?
Right.
Like,
So let me, okay. So let me give you a prime example. We should have my wife on for this too, because so YouTube now has this thing that is called super chats. Okay. And and it's a paid platform. My wife doesn't have social media anymore. Her YouTube is her social media because it's basically faceless and nameless and whatever else. But with super chats, you basically, in a YouTube forum, you get to do live, like live chatting as it happens, and the content creators and YouTube gets to see it, and and then like you said, like the thumbs up and all that stuff. It's like live. It's you see it as it's happening, and so I think, and I can't speak to this for, if this is something that is factually that's what's happening or whatever. But the way that this new YouTube platform works, and I think I said this already, it is a paid service. So yes, I do pay $3.99 a month through my Apple account for this thing for my wife to do, because it's real, and it's not like just one or two people we're talking thousands of people who pay for this, and I didn't know what super chats were until she started doing it. Heck, I subscribed to a bunch of junk anyway through my stuff, and yeah, whatever. And I would assume that YouTube was probably monitoring his content, and more than likely, oh my gosh, he's getting a lot of positive feeds. So combine that, in my opinion, with what you're saying or what you said about, the false poll, these Secret Service and all the stuff about the Secret Service and being denied that. I honestly think that the Democrats are terrified of him, and they're trying anything they can do to throw him under the bus.
I want to make one point here with that.
Go for it.
So YouTube doesn't have a dislike button anymore. All you can see is the likes, right? So if you really want to get good feedback on like how people feel, you got to go through the comment section. And even then, you got to be careful because now there's bots and stuff like that. But let's go back to if you go to watch Biden's State of the Union address on YouTube, read the comments. You go listen to a Trump speech. Trump speeches are kind of mixed. There's a lot of people that praise him and whatnot. But if you go to look at Biden's State of the Union, or any of his speeches, read the comments section, right? And then I want you to go listen to RFK's this speech that he's giving right now that we're talking about. Read the comments section. You hear that MSNBC article I was telling you about, what talks about him denied Secret Service because apparently that Biden's ahead in the polling, and I'm questioning what polling they're going off of, because I'm looking at comments and what people are saying about these two, and it seems to me, based off of how many, not even what the comments are section, look at the likes the video gets. I don't even think I got to look it up, but I don't even think Biden's State of the Union address had like 10,000 likes, and this is the President of the United States.
So okay.
I don't know if you can look that up in real time, but compare that kind of stuff. And then, I didn't see a single bad comment about this speech that we're discussing right now on YouTube. And everything I've seen on social media, on reviews of like his podcast with Lex Friedman and Rogan and Jordan Peterson, it's been all positive.
All right. So here's an interesting point right here. Okay, so I'm just scrolling down here. Okay, so I'm not even going to click on these okay, so from ABC. ABC has the top, so I typed into Google polling between Joe Biden and RFK. As of Thursday, the new average shows Biden with 65.5% nationally, and controversial environmental advocate attorney Robert F. Kennedy trailing at 14.2%. Okay, so I scroll on down. The Hill. Biden leading RFK Jr. by 53 points in a new survey. Biden opens up wide lead on RFK in New Hampshire poll. Newsweek. Okay, then you get this. So this is from June 30th, and censor.com. RFK has surprising support among Joe Biden voters. Okay, so that's and so here's one from July 11th. Okay, let me go to. Kennedy's polling numbers trump Biden's in new poll. This is also the CERES, the Sears Courier. I don't know who these guys are, but it says a recent Economist YouGov poll shows Robert Kennedy with a significantly higher favorability rating than Joe Biden. But yet you go back to that search page, everything else is USA Today, RFK starts 2024 campaign with 14%, and then the Highland County Press, July 12th, Biden's biggest problem, RFK Jr., CNN.com. RFK has a big primary problem. Democrats like Joe Biden. So, and then in the Hindustan Times. So I'm assuming this is an Indian newspaper. Robert Kennedy Jr. is pushing ahead of Joe Biden. I just did this in real time. Okay? Now, the Boston Herald. Biden should watch RFK Jr. National Review, Biden at 60%. Okay. Of course, Fox News says RFK remains a thorn in Biden's side. They want him, So, and where do you go with this?
There's so much I could talk about with this. They're talking about, all right. They're saying that Biden's ahead in the polls, and yet, most of the stuff I see, and I hope my information's not biased here. I really try to, look at all different news sources here. But most of the stuff I see, a lot of people aren't big fans of Biden. They're just not.
No.
The guy is he 81, 82 years old? How old is Joe Biden? We know his age. I know it's 80 something, right? Is he 80 now?
Go ahead and talk. I'll get it.
Okay, so there's countless videos of the guy that clearly shows. I don't think he's cognitively there.
80.
He's not. I'm sorry, you can't make that argument to me that he is 100% what he is. Look at videos of him talking 10 years ago versus now.
Yeah.
It's not the same person.
Yep.
There's countless videos of him just lost walking around. His speeches are terrible. He stumbles all over himself. His State of the Union address, I'm sorry, it was pitiful. There's countless videos of him falling down. And then you look at RFK. Besides, he has a natural speaking problem. I forget the name of what he has. But the man is very well thought. He's very intelligent. He speaks very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes great care of himself. I don't know if you guys saw that workout video. That man is 69 years old. He is jacked.
And he said on the Lex Fridman podcast, he talked about his daily workout routine and his
he takes great care of himself. He works out. He takes his vitamins. He does testosterone replacement therapy, which has been shown to be really good for men over the age of 40 something, whatever. It's a rising thing, and it's someone I do take that into account with leadership, because I see someone that takes care of himself as someone who has a lot of self-respect for themselves, and I think that's a great leadership quality. And I think someone running for president, I think that's really important. And I think it's he also makes the statement of how he's setting an example for Americans. One of the things he was campaigning on is he wants to promote a healthy lifestyle to Americans
Right.
and really promote making sure we eating good food, and like he wants to set an example. I don't see Biden doing that. I
No.
don't see Trump doing that. I didn't. Obama kind of did that. I mean, the guy played basketball and took care of himself. He was active. I didn't see Bush doing that. My point being is he seems to be someone that's trying to lead by example.
Right.
And
V,
and this is
when you
another.
were growing
Go
up,
ahead, Sean.
when you were growing up, were there any presidents that made like a big nationwide push for that? Because I know that like things have kind of changed where
Ronald Reagan.
they'll put out the new food pyramid and shit like that. But I don't know if there's
That's
ever
a
been
nightmare.
like a big campaign push from a presidential candidate. Like, not when it comes to people's overall health, but like, obviously Joe Biden.
Probably not since John F. Kennedy.
No, but
Yep.
you guys remember when you were in school though that you did the presidential fitness thing?
Mm-hmm.
That was
Yeah.
that was Reagan.
That was Reagan?
That was Reagan. Because
Okay.
I remember we were like, so I was in kindergarten when Reagan was elected, and that was like when my third grade, probably when I was like in the third grade when that came about. But I remember, like the sit and reach, and then the how many pull-ups can you do, and how many push-ups in a minute, and how many sit-ups in a minute, and yeah. But that was Reagan. But yeah,
Is that required at schools anymore?
we do it. I don't know if it's
We
required.
did it.
We do. We still do
No,
it.
yeah, I remember we did it for a little while, but I don't remember like doing the sit and reach anymore, like in high school and
No,
stuff like that.
it's. I think it's. I think it's just primarily done in elementary now at our school. So, but let me bring up this next thing that was brought up. The next thing that RFK talked about, which was the whole thing of, and he may, this. He talks about why debate is important. Why do we need to have this freedom of speech? Why is this discussion important? And why he feels like he's kind of being censored on this. So let's go to the next one here.
That is why the First Amendment's important. Debate, congenial, respectful debate is the fertilizer, it's the water, it's the sunlight for our democracy. We need to be talking to each other. Now,
So we need to be talking to each other,
Not
and
censoring each other.
not censoring each other. And I ran out of time this week to get this, but so. And I didn't send this to you guys on. I kind of did. I don't know if I said something to you or not, but we've had our talks about good old Tucker Carlson before and how much of a douche he is and everything else. But I'm driving back and forth to Vacation Bible School this week. I've been seeing, I'll bring up YouTube and I listen to YouTube on my way back and forth. And I grew up. I grew up in the baby years of rap, and when I was in high school, NWA, F the Police, that whole scene, everybody was. I still remember going to track meets, and this is going to date you guys, but Two Life Crew and all this stuff was getting big in NWA, but Ice Cube was one of. I'm an Ice Cube fan just for the stuff that he produces now in the theater and everything. And his TV shows that he's produced. But Tucker Carlson did an interview with Ice Cube. And
Yeah, he's been doing a tour. He was on Rogan recently too.
And when I was like, okay, I'm going to get past the fact that this is Tucker Carlson and I'm going to watch this interview. And it was a great interview. I mean, it was two sides talking to each other. And Ice Cube had brought this up, he's like, we need to be talking to each other. We need to be, and he goes on to talk about how he's been shunned by parts of the African American community. He's like, Oprah won't have him on. The only African American who's had him on, the only African American host who's had him on in the last year was Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey has had him on, and the way that Ice Cube put it is, I'm not in the get along go along club. And I thought that was an interesting statement. He said the get along go along club, and he goes on to describe what this get along go along club is. If I go along with the narrative and I get along with those who talk the talk and talk the narrative, you know, he says then you're in. But if you're not a part of the get along go along club, you're shunned. And so Tucker Carlson pushes him a little bit further. He's like, okay, what kind of issues are you talking about? He's like, and he says, I'm a big advocate, Black Lives Matters and all this stuff and everything, and how they've been raising all this money. But he's like, where's it going? And so part of the interview was Tucker Carlson driving with Ice Cube in South Central LA. And Tucker Carlson's like, here's my neighborhood. It looks the same it did 30 years ago. Where's all this, And so that's counter to the narrative, and that's counter to, and so
I can tell you, Southside Chicago has not gotten any better.
No, it's been
no improvements.
It's been a dog's age since I've been to South. But when I've been
working there.
When you come in on I-55, you go in through Southside, and that's you lock the doors, and not to sound racist, but that's what it is. It's rough part of town, and so you have Ice Cube talking to Tucker Carlson. Russell Brand did an interview. Russell Brand has his own little podcast, and he did an interview. I think it was with Asa Hutchinson, who's also running for president. Okay, he did an interview with Asa Hutchinson. Two polar opposites. Bill Maher doing a interview with what's Trump's former Secretary of State, Nikki Haley.
Oh, that's right. They did talk.
And so what are you having here? You have Russell Brand like you said, Travis. He's a character, and he's off in left field as far as left field can get. But he's sitting down and he's having a conversation with a conservative. Here's Tucker Carlson, Ice Cube. And this Bill Maher, and Ice Cube actually gave some examples of other people who are, well, let's sit down and let's have these discussions. Let's debate. Let's talk about it. It's kind of like what he said here, what Robert F. Kennedy said here. Debate is what is the fertilizer that helps our country to grow. But our country right now does not. If you're not playing to the agenda, you're going to get hammered. And so so let me play this next clip. So I want you guys to listen for this next term that Robert F. Kennedy is going to talk about, and it's malinformation. And his discussion about this is pretty cool, and we'll go into this next.
They had to invent a new word called malinformation to censor people like me. There was no misinformation on my Instagram account. Everything I put on that account was cited and sourced, peer-reviewed publications or government databases. Nobody has ever pointed to a single piece of misinformation that I publish. I was removed for something they called malinformation. Malinformation is information that is true, but is inconvenient to the government. They don't want people to hear. And that's antithetical to the values of our country.
And what's your original? What when you hear that? What do you think, Travis?
The government's playing a dangerous game. Social media networks are playing a very dangerous game in censorship. We've talked censorship before, I believe, and we talked about, obviously, if you're inciting violence or like things like of that nature that are like truly destructive or, you can make that argument, but man, there's a very fine line. And in RFK's defense, I think it's definitely been crossed and not in his favor. And I'm very skeptical of government saying deciding what should be said and what should not be said, as everyone should be. I don't believe that's how it should work in this country, but it seems like that's kind of the direction that we're going.
Well,
So I would like to see that obviously changed.
let's go back in our time machine. Let's go back to COVID days.
Let's go back.
Let's go back to COVID days. Now, this was
Let's
something.
go back to that Jon Stewart quote or that Jon Stewart joke. We can't talk about, the whole coming from the lab. You can't talk about that. Remember, you were instantly labeled as a conspiracy theorist if you even said that. If you made a post about it, it would get shut down. You couldn't tweet it. You couldn't make a Facebook status about it. You couldn't make an Instagram post about it. That's just one example. But like this kind of thing's becoming more and more common, especially since COVID. But keep going with what you were saying.
Well, so if I go with, and I mean, this podcast was birthed in the heart of COVID, okay, and I remember, people were at each other's necks about COVID in the first place. And you had these big names who did not, who didn't get the vaccination. Sean's kind of in and out. He's in a loud space right now, but we can talk Aaron Rodgers. We had the discussion about football players and how the NFL and the NBA and even NASCAR, if you want to compete, you need to get vaccinated because here's the facts about COVID and blah, 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 blah. The truth of the matter is we didn't know anything about COVID. We didn't know it. We're getting to know it now that we're 3 years out and we've had time to study it and they've actually had time to sit down and set the numbers up and everything. But people here, there's no denying that we know people who have the guy who I bought my house from. The guy who I'm not going to mention his name, but the guy who I bought my house from, this is not a conspiracy theory. I know this. I know the man. I have friends who still keep in contact with him. He got, and this is probably part of it is his fault, but he got the COVID vaccination and the shingles vaccination in the same day. The man is paralyzed from the waist down.
Oh, no.
He's paralyzed from the waist down. Okay? Now, I got both. I got the two. I got the Moderna. I didn't have any. When I got the first shot, it was enough it kind of knocked me on my butt, but the second shot didn't do a dab blame thing to me. No side effects. I still got COVID. But I did it to be responsible with the school, to be in school. I did it to be responsible for my sister-in-law who is immunocompromised. But like you said, Travis, if we were to say, Facebook, the whole fact-checking thing, if you said anything that was contrary to the narrative, you were either, you'd get one of those little things at the bottom that said, what you're saying here is not 100% truthful, blah, blah, blah. Or you were put in Facebook, what they call, and they still have it today, Facebook jail. You're put in Facebook jail if you say something that is considered to be even,
look at the Twitter files too, with COVID and like the Hunter Biden laptop thing and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. That was another person who was interviewed in that hearing was the reporter who broke the Hunter Biden laptop thing. She was in that hearing too, and from minute one on, the Democrats were blasting everything in this committee hearing, and it was very well. That's the next thing I have. So what I want to, I'll play this next, and this moves on with what. So the person who is the ranking committee member on this the Judiciary Committee. She is let me look here. Stacy Plaskett. She is from, where is she from? She is, oh wow. Okay, so she is a non-voting delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives from the U.S. Virgin Islands, and she's the ranking member on this committee. Which that I didn't know that she was from.
Interesting.
That is interesting. But so she is the ranking member on this committee, and what I'm going to play is basically part of her opening speech, making accusations towards RFK, him, what he's saying is wrong, what he's doing is wrong, and all this other stuff. And then I'll go ahead and let it play into RFK's response to her, which was also, and there was a lot of back and forth between these two. This is just one of the exchanges. So let's play this clip.
We hear. Why? That's been the question that quite a number of people have been asking me. Why are you having this hearing? What does this have to do with inflation? What does this have to do with the cost of living? What does this have to do with the everyday lives of Americans, the thing that the Republican Party said that they would focus on if they had control of the House? Why would the Republican leadership and the committee majority give a hearing and a platform to the witnesses today? Specifically to Mr. Kennedy, a man who has recently claimed that COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and Black people. People who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. Before that, in his film, Medical Racism, The New Apartheid, that film stated that COVID-19 vaccines do not work for Black children because of their, quote, kick-ass kind of immune system, that hyper, superhuman, subhuman kind of language. He also said, even in Hitler's Germany, you could cross the Alps to Switzerland, could hide in an attic like Anne Frank did, to imply Jews in Nazi Germany had more freedoms than unvaccinated Americans during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Like anti-vax, I've never been anti-vaccine. Everybody in this room probably believes that I have been. That's the prevailing narrative. Anti-Semitism, racism, these are the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives, and they're applied to me to silence me, because people don't want me to have that conversation about the war, about groceries, about inflation, about the war on the middle class in this country that we need to be having. And by the way, I want to say this while I'm on the record, that in my entire life, and why I'm under oath, in my entire life, I have never uttered a phrase that was either racist or anti-Semitic. I have spent my life fighting my professional career, fighting for Israel, the protection of Israel. I have a better record on Israel than anybody in this chamber today. I'm the only person who has publicly objected to the $2 billion payout that the Biden administration is now making to Iran, which is a genocidal program. I'm the only one who's objected to that. I fought more ferociously for Israel than anybody.
So interesting comments there from RFK. What do you think? What's your response to that, Travis?
I saw that. It plays into, we always hear that Democrats specifically, when it comes to when they're backed into a corner or they're challenged, it just goes to saying someone's a racist or whatever, or name calling and putting the blame on the other party. She took a jab at Republicans there. And it just goes into what he's saying about we have to stop this name calling and we have to talk about this kind of stuff. They're always just resorting to things like this. And like I'll say this about his anti-vaccine stuff. I've listened to his Rogan podcast. I've listened to his Lex Fridman podcast. I'll get into that in a second, but like just his stance on vaccines, what I've seen him say, I don't think he is anti-vax. what I got out of what he's saying is he's asking questions and he's not getting answers to these questions. Like,
Right.
for example, I forget which vaccine it was, but he asked Fauci, I want to see test trials of this vaccine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to see, like, you guys claim that this vaccine is safe. Let me see the trials. Fauci never gave him the trials. And I believe that's an ongoing law. There was a settlement he had on a lawsuit
Right.
with that. But
Right.
like, that's what he's asking for. He just wants more transparency with this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's I don't think that's far out to ask those types of questions.
Mm-mm.
You know, even like people were skeptical with the COVID vaccine, and by all means, they should have been skeptical of it because it was a rushed process and something that I thought was very interesting. And I'm going to paraphrase it. It's going to get it. He talks about it, I think, on the Rogan one or Lex. I think he talks on both of them. But there is a deal where pharmaceutical companies can basically pay to have their vaccine fast tracked
Yes.
with like
Yeah,
very
right.
minimal testing at all. They
Mm-hmm.
can pay to have it done. Otherwise, I believe the original process was like a 10-year process. It's no longer that anymore.
Right.
And there is a law. You cannot sue a pharmaceutical company for any adverse effects of their vaccines. And I believe I don't have the number, but it's a maybe I'll get labeled as an anti-vaxxer now, but like there's a lot of mandatory. You have to get a lot of Sean. If you can talk, how many vaccines has your baby had to get?
So
What
far, um, mm, just
that?
hepatitis B, I
Okay,
think.
because I believe there's like I forget the number of vaccines that are like mandated that like a newborn has to get within a time period. I don't know if you know anything about that. I've heard it's
I
kind of
I don't
ridiculous
know
though.
I don't know the specifics.
My
But I know
friend,
that
they
like
just had
for
a baby, and he was
school,
telling me there was a lot of shots.
if you want your kid to go to public school, there's like at least here, for example, there's like a certain couple of series, like it's at least 5 different vaccines and shots that kids have to have before they
Hmm.
can go to school. They can't
Right,
go to public school without them.
Yeah.
I
right,
don't
and
know, but like for our newborn though, I'm pretty sure she's only had the hepatitis shot.
okay. So that being said, we have these mandated vaccines, and look, vaccines have been a great scientific thing. I mean, we killed polio and so many other diseases with it. But I don't understand why it's called anti-vax to ask the question of, can I see the safety trials of this? Because there are cases like you're talking about a man who was just paralyzed for having two vaccinations recently. There's people who had adverse effects with the COVID vaccination. I mean, there are these cases that happen. I mean, there's no denying that this happens. There's lawsuits that happen with this stuff all the time. Um, I don't
But
know.
also, I think we as a nation, I mean, anytime I think everything should always be taken from an objective point of view. Like, you should always at least go why. And I'm not saying that I understand why the federal government made a push for people to get the vaccine. I get that. I'm
Mhm.
not opposed to them saying, hey, you should get the vaccine, you should get the vaccine, you should get the vaccine. But like, let's not forget. I don't want to like tinfoil hat it, but things that we know to be true now, things like MK Ultra, right? Was it the Tuskegee Airmen where they were
Yes. With it.
forced,
Right.
where they were
Right.
told that they were being cured, but instead they were like given syphilis. Like there are instances, and it is proven where our government has failed people and have lied to people in order to get things that they want. So I'm not saying that is anything at all what they were doing with the COVID vaccine. It wasn't that, but in the same token, instead of being like, "Oh, they said we should do it, so we should do it," you should always, always, always ask yourself why. And then in certain situations where, again, like this was something that was new, if you didn't fall into the category of someone that would potentially like if you were a young healthy 17-year-old that was athletic and doing stuff, the odds of you dying from COVID were very, very, very low. It wasn't impossible. I'm not saying that it was impossible, but the odds were very low. And especially if you were rural, like if you lived in an area where COVID wasn't like super rampant during the times when, COVID first started, like it would make sense if someone said, hey, I'm going to wait a year. I don't have a problem with getting the vaccine, but let me just wait a year. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm fit. I'm not around people a whole lot. I don't go to the city. I don't go to the areas. I wear my mask where I'm supposed to, which again, that was a big thing. The mask hole, that was another big old dog park was like, wear your mask, wear your mask, wear your mask. And then you have people, oh, the masks aren't enough. So you should always look at things from an objective point of view of why. Why are they asking me this? How does this benefit me, my family? Because again, like, I don't want to, again, this is always worst case scenario, but like, I remember when I got my shot, I did the Johnson & Johnson. When I got my shot, I was so sick.
Dude,
that
me too.
Following the next following days, we're like, again, my situation was different, but imagine if you were like a sole provider. You're a single mom. You're a dad that works. You're the only one making income in your family. You live paycheck to paycheck. You're forced to get this shot, and then you're out of work for a week.
And then you don't get paid. You don't get paid for your time off.
You don't get paid for your time off, and even then, like, imagine you never got COVID in the first place. You hadn't, or even if you had COVID previously, you had already had it once. You had the antibodies. I remember Tony got COVID, and this was when I was unvaccinated. We were in the same house together, and I never got it.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things where everyone's situation was so vastly, vastly different.
And if you spoke out again, and that's a great point, Sean, because if you spoke out against that, and since you're on here now and you're in a good spot to talk, go back to Aaron Rodgers. How bad was Aaron Rodgers ostracized in the sports media? Pat McAfee was about the only one who was giving him a platform to talk about, here's what I'm doing. Here's what my physicians have. And these people were black.
Rogan had him on too.
Huh? Yeah.
Rogan had him on too.
And these guys are blacklisted. Why? Because goes back to what Sean said. Because you asked why. Because you asked why, you were censored. You were taken down off of this. You were taken off of that. We're going to fight this whole thing of malinformation. We're going to fight this whole thing of what's supposed to be said. What's supposed to be done. What's supposed to be the narrative. And what we've turned into then are these people who back and forth. I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right. And it's not, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't classify that as debate. That doesn't classify as debate. Debate is, okay, I'm going to give my presentation as to why I don't think that the COVID vaccine worked, or that that implementation and forcing it upon the population was right. There was no debate. It was, you're going to do this and you're going to like it. I mean, am I perceiving that wrong, or is that the way you guys saw it?
That was 100% how it was. 100% how it was.
So
there's no question of that.
I don't think, you had people who fit the bill for, okay, here's somebody who's immunocompromised. Who was it that passed away? More times than not. If we were to look back at it, and maybe if we should have done some of our research better, but if we would have looked back and said, okay, who died? Who died from COVID? Immunocompromised, the elderly. Okay.
Well, look at what the hospitals did too, with like the numbers and stuff like that, and the money that hospitals received for. I mean, that's been proven. Hospitals got money for saying it was a COVID death. That was proven. So there was a lot of money involved. I mean, my grandparents, they had a friend who worked for Pfizer, and I mean, obviously she had stock in Pfizer, and she was able to retire off of that stock. But I mean, there's been numerous politicians that made money off of Pfizer, Moderna, and stuff like that, and I don't think that's. No. Am I wrong for questioning that? I mean, stock trading and Congress and government officials, that's a whole different topic. But I don't know. I would encourage. I know we're coming up on an hour. I would just say this: remain skeptical. Like even with RFK, like I'm not as of now. I'm leaning towards him. I'm still not 100% sold on him.
Yeah.
But I've name another politician that will go on a 3-hour podcast, unscripted, and lay it all out there. Name
That
another
was
politician that'll do that. He's been, like I said, I've listened to him on Jordan Peterson. I've listened to him on Rogan. I've listened to him on Lex Friedman. And that's what he's doing. He's going on podcasts because he thinks that's going to get more views. And I think that's a great strategy. But my point being, like, name another guy that's willing to do that. And I would encourage everyone. The Lex Friedman interview is such a great interview.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not just his campaign. He talks about, Cuban Missile Crisis and things like that. He's a very well-spoken guy, and he's got his wits. He takes care of himself, and just give it a listen. Do your research on this guy. I mean, do your research on all the candidates. But the guy gives me some hope. He does give me some hope. I really wish people would watch it.
I want to play one more clip. This is the last clip that I have. And I think this is, and you kind of mentioned earlier, Travis, in your comment about where he's wanting to go. And so let me play this last clip, because this was, to me, out of the whole thing that I watched with him, this was probably the most refreshing thing that I heard him say about what should be next. Instead of censorship, what should be next. So let's look at this real quick.
I think that's more important, and it goes directly to what you talked about, ranking member, which is the need of this toxic polarization that is destroying our country today. And how do we deal with that? This kind of division is more dangerous for our country than any time since the American Civil War. And how do we deal with that? How are we going to, every Democrat on this committee believes that we need to end that polarization. Do you think you can do that by censoring people? I'm telling you, you cannot. That only aggravates and amplifies the problem. We need to start being kind to each other. We need to start being respectful to each other. We need to start restoring the comedy to this chamber and to the rest of America, but it has to start here.
And to me, that's exactly what needs to be done. The whole thing of that conversation was, what are we doing here? Because if you're not meeting the narrative, and you can be totally shut out. There's no debate. There's no discussion. We're going to have it our way. And what he said there, we haven't been this divided since the American Civil War. Later on in the hearing, he would bring up the McCarthy hearings. And for those of you who aren't well versed in history, during the 1950s, when we went through the second Red Scare, right after communists had taken over China, we were terrified that if a country like China could be literally overnight fall to the communists, it could happen here. And so, McCarthy, he's senator from Wisconsin, he holds up this paper. He says, "In my hand, I have the 200 names of people in the State Department who are communists." And he would have these hearings. Why? Because he was going on a witch hunt, because he was wanting to make a narrative work, that he wanted to scare people into voting for him for president, and he wanted to. And the same thing is happening in these hearings here. Okay? If you don't meet what I want to say, we're going to censor you. There's an interesting clip that's out there, and I've seen it on my Facebook feed before, and RFK actually mentioned this in his Lex Friedman interview. It's some kind of, I forgot what kind of the name of the organization was, or the name of the group that basically it's relation between the government and the media and whatever. And but this clip is of all of these news outlets. I mean, it had to have been, I bet you throughout the clip, and it's only like a 45-second clip, and it's these 200 plus, I would say, local news channels giving this spiel. It's like it's a PSA of, we're about giving honest to goodness truth, and the false reporting and false is just irresponsible reporting and blah blah blah. And it was word for word what each one of these were saying, and it really did.
I've seen a few videos like that where they take, yeah.
Right. And so this is really something that should be concerning with us as Americans, that we should be thinking, okay, now, like I said, I don't have my tinfoil hat on and I can't put it on, but this is something that should really be concerning American citizens, that this whole, is this happening? Is this something that is really going on?
And I'll even, like I said, everyone knows how we feel about Trump, but like, look what they're doing with Trump with this lawsuit and like the timing of it and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah,
I mean, it's obvious that there is a battle going on. It's an unconstitutional battle, in my opinion. That I don't understand why I don't think people are paying attention to it. And if they are, they're not speaking up about it.
No.
It's a big issue.
Yeah.
It's a big issue, and this goes beyond RFK. I think this is something that people really need to pay attention to, and I'm really curious to see how this election goes. This is going to be an interesting election.
Yeah.
And we will be covering, this is something we'll be coming back to again.
And I don't know if people will make it this far into the podcast or not, but we're not giving our sponsorship, not that it matters, but we're not here touting RFK. We're not in love with him,
I gave my opinion on it, but I'm just encouraging people, like, listen to the interview, give the guy a chance, and like vice versa, go listen to Biden's speeches, go listen to Trump talk, like, listen to all of them, listen to all the other candidates. And I'll want to listen. You make the decision.
If you have a chance, watch the Ice Cube interview with Tucker. If you like Tucker Carlson, then you'll love the interview. If you don't like Tucker Carlson, I still think you'll enjoy the interview, because, when Tucker Carlson asked, "So are you a Democrat?" He said, "No." He said, "I'm a free thinker." He said, "I'm like the most dangerous. I'm the thing that makes politicians." I encourage people, and I tell my students this every year, the first day of class. Take everything that everybody tells you with a grain of salt, including me. I get ugly looks from parents when I tell, when my youth group, hey, don't take everything find out for yourself why you believe what you believe. Don't just say, well, I raised my kids in church, but I also want them to come to, I want them to know God on for themselves, not just because of what I say. And it's the same thing with politics. It's the same thing with anything you see on social media, on YouTube, on the news, on anything. Take it with a grain of salt, because you never know when there is a narrative being pushed that is trying to sway you one way or the other. So,
and can I tell something really quick?
Sure.
I know we're pushing time, but I really want to say this. I had your class, and I listened to your speech that you gave us about that. And before I listened to that speech, I was a Republican. Why was I a Republican? Because my family was Republicans, and that's what we vote Republican. That's what we do. My grandparents are hardcore Republicans. When Bush was running for president, by God, our family's voting for Bush. Bush is for us, right? Mm-hmm. When McCain was running against Obama, you couldn't vote for Obama. No, McCain, because we got to vote Republican. We got to vote Republican. The Democrats are bad, right? I had no idea why I was a Republican, other than I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I feel like that so many kids growing up, or just people in general, they fall into that because that's what they think they're supposed to do. They're not thinking for themselves, like you said. When you gave me that speech in high school, I'm not kidding, it changed my whole perspective on politics, how I think, and it opened my mind to so many things. And from that day forward, I no longer identify as a Republican. I don't identify as a Democrat. I am an independent thinker, like Ice Cube said. And I think that's such a very important message that people need to get. And I believe you were in the right to say that, and it's something everyone needs to hear. So thank you for telling me that, for telling your students that. I think that's a very important message. And yeah, thank you for that. Really.
Well, I'll try not to go out with too big of a head on that, but anyway, I appreciate that. Yeah, so Sean had to bug out on us. He just messaged us on our Zoom chat here. He's like, "Hey, the baby's going crazy," so I have to. I was like, "That's fine." But hey, thanks for joining us this week. Great discussion, great topic. Share this. This is one of those episodes that we really want you to share this. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the support. Share this with friends. We are nearing, and I just checked our Facebook page this afternoon. We're nearing the 600. We over the course of this year, we started the year out at 500 followers, a little bit over 500. We are now we are at 596 followers, getting close to 600.
Ooh,
so
we're getting up there. I didn't know we were getting that far.
It's great to get all of the likes and everything that we get. So thank you all for that. Be a friend, tell a friend, and share with us. You can find us anywhere. Share us on YouTube. Okay. So thank you all. Have a great evening, and we will see you next time on The Voice of Reason.
See you guys.
It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast.